Well, hello. And yes, it's that time again. It's Ru and Stu in the shed. And who have we got this time, Ruth?
We have got Adrian Thomas. Welcome, Adrian, and here's Cromwell to say hello. Right.
Hi.
Um, Now we know you're in the police, so anything you say will be used in evidence against you. Okay.
And rightly so. Thank you. I have to say, I have been reflecting on the idea that it's Ru and Stew, because the natural rhyming for a word that naturally rhymes with Ru and Stew isn't naturally shed, but I don't know if that's a very helpful observation. Perhaps that'll be for next week.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a clever clogs here, haven't we, Ruth?
Yeah.
Okay, Ruth, go for it.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you, how did you come to faith, Adrian? What sort of started you?
So my parents were good churchgoers, lived in Reading, not a million miles from here. So from quite a young age, I was at church and went to the Sunday school there. And so that helped me have a sort of a foundation. And through that, I met older people. And as I went into my teenage years, people that actually had a living faith as opposed to a kind of understanding of the Bible. And I found that their example very challenging and wanted me to whetted my appetite to want to know more, really. And so over through speaking to them, through studying, asking questions, I came to an understanding about what Christ had done for me and the forgiveness that he offered. And that became more real as I left home and went to uni and had a powerful encounter with God soon after going to university. And from there, I've followed Christ and been in church ever since, really.
And whereabouts in Reading? This is me being.
So they lived in Woodley, in the suburbs to the one side of Reading.
Okay, yeah, I know Woodley. Yeah.
And had you always wanted to be in the police, or how did that come about?
No is the short answer. I hadn't. So I went off and studied what was town planning at the time, which is a form of sort of human geography with a view of joining local government and working out how places develop. And I got a little bit disenchanted with the course. It was interesting, but I couldn't see myself doing it as a job. And an opportunity came along to spend some time with the police service, because I've always had an interest in it. That experience was quite bruising, and I didn't enjoy it and thought, I'm never going to have anything to do with the police. That's terrible. And ironically, another experience came along 18 months later, which was much better. And the man that oversaw that program, where you could spend a few days with the police, was a Christian, I since learnt. And he was much more human and approachable compared to the people that I'd had dealings with the year before, which had really put me off. So his example and just the interest in human life and the things you see just felt I wanted to join, and I haven't found anything better to do after nearly 24 years. So here I am.
And what difference does your faith make for?
In every day, or in terms of work?
In every day and work, really.
So I feel, well, I felt that partly the job I do, I felt very much a calling from God, although that doesn't mean it's been particularly easy, or far from it. I just know that it's the certainty of walking in faith with him, and having fellowship with him in a quiet and private way, to know that that's and the forgiveness that he offers each day for the mistakes you make.
So what do you actually do in the police?
You might. Well, I think my boss asked me that. So I oversee a team of detectives, as I do. So I've done lots of different jobs in the police. I've worked on the motorway. I've looked after detainees in custody. Worked in the neighbourhood area. My current work is as a detective, and I oversee a team of detectives that specialise in domestic abuse crimes, so particularly unpleasant crimes in people's homes, helping victims of abuse both flee the abuse and to bring prosecutions against those that have so badly damaged them. And my team cover the Oxfordshire area, and we have some success in what we do, but it's not to say that there aren't issues and difficulties with that.
You mentioned doing different jobs. I mean, to what extent do you choose, and to what extent do you get allocated?
It's a little bit of both. You can clearly choose. I chose this role, and I really enjoy it. But there are things that come along that you don't have much choice over. So if there are times when, if I've sought promotion in the past, they will then tell you where you're going to work rather than you having much choice in that. So there's a little bit of both, but most of the time it's a question of finding your niche, the thing you enjoy, because the beauty is there's lots of different jobs within the organisation I work for, and you can usually find something that chimes with your skills and abilities and your interests.
Now, I'm a great fan of police dramas, Inspector Morse and all the rest of it. Now, I don't want you to ruin it for everyone, but is that in any way realistic about what police life is like?
No. So I don't watch them because it's a bit like watching A Busman's Holiday. It's just a bit of drama. There's little bits of it that might be, but if everyone was as egotistical and as difficult as that, then nobody would work for the police service. Yeah.
I was wondering, Adrian, how long have you lived in Kidlington? How and did you come for your job, or did you just?
Yeah. So my wife and I met in Oxford. So I was living on the edge of Oxford, and when we got married, we came to live in Kidlington, and that is, you've really tested me now, 19 years ago.
Okay.
And we came to KBC.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
About 5 or 6 years ago.
Right.
Sorry, I can't quite remember.
That's all right.
What took you so long?
Yeah.
Well, what can I say? That the lure of the Anglican Church is strong, Stuart. I mean, but we wanted somewhere more local, and the opportunity to serve our local community, or live, meet fellow Christians in our local community, was why we decided to come to KBC.
And we're glad to have you.
Thank you. That's very long suffering.
And I was just wondering, how's lockdown been for you? How have you?
Well, ironically, I haven't really noticed it, in the sense that I still have to go into work. Unfortunately, people still need the police. Nationally, the picture's been fairly bleak in the world of work I'm in, that people experience much more abuse and many more difficulties. So we haven't been out of work as a result. So we've had to keep going. It's been harder for the family, but I've been able to sort of plow on. Really, it's the difficulty is that outside of work, the things that keep you going, the things you enjoy, have been much more difficult, as everyone's experience, isn't it? There's only so much a Zoom you can take, and that's no disrespect to you two. That's the problem, isn't it? Those other social things that help you kind of recharge and connect with people are much more difficult.
Yeah. So what are your passions? What are you interested in? What do you like to do?
What are my passions? So I have a secret interest in railways, old railways, trains, which it's not train spotting, I have to hasten to add, but I kind of have an eye, and sort of history and science and those kind of things. I have to say I do quite enjoy my job and enjoy some of the aspects of that. So some of my staff think I'm a bit passionate about it. I hope I'm not too bad. And I've got a pet dog, so I love walking and the countryside and just breaks and things like that. So a few things we try and do, and some of those things we've been able to continue in lockdown, haven't we?
Yeah, which is good. And talking about lockdown, if you could choose two people to share lockdown with you who aren't your family, who would you choose? Well,
I've given this. I have thought about this, and I have to say I wondered about having Raymond Blanc as being one of my, because the man can cook, can't he? And he's quite a raconteur. You'll have a few stories to tell. And I did wonder about Barack Obama as well, because I don't think we've got a lot in common, but he seems a fascinating man, and very well rounded, and just good company, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
Quite what they'd
check
make
if
of
they're
me is
available.
another matter. Sorry, Stuart.
We'll check if they're available.
Thank you so much. Put in a good word.
Yeah.
Does the reference to Raymond Blanc mean that you're a bit of a foodie, or?
No, it just means I like Raymond Blanc's food. If I, on the odd, once every 10 years when I go, so I just thought he's not far away, isn't he? He's Oxfordshire, so he wouldn't have far to travel as well.
So have you had a meal in his restaurant?
I think I've been to the Brasserie Blanc once. Don't get. I'm not some grand foodie on a.
I just wondered. I've never been.
Just I just thought if you could have somebody nice in lockdown, you want a good cook, don't you? Everyone's eating
definitely.
well, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. We definitely need a good cook. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with our family's food. I just hate
And I was wondering, what was your favourite? Have you got a favourite Bible verse?
Yeah, I've given this some thought. I made a little note. So I like Micah 6:8, which talks about what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And I find it helps resonate with what I do. And it's just a continual call for humility, because I think that's important to remember, that we're all fallen sinners, and that the Lord doesn't call us to be perfect. He calls us to follow him, and we need to seek forgiveness for all the things we get wrong.
That's great. That's great.
Just go back to lockdown for a moment. The police at times have found themselves sort of enforcing lockdown, and in a way that may be difficult and may change people's perception of the police. Do you see that as an issue? I mean, we normally like to think of the police being on our side and there to protect us, but actually if they're turning up and saying, you stop having fun.
I guess, well, I have to say these are all just my personal reflections. I think there are times I've had my head in my hands thinking, I don't think we've struck the balance right. There are other times when colleagues have acted very appropriately. So I think it's a difficult issue. I think we aim to police by consent, and the other challenge from the summer is about Black Lives Matter and all of the issues about justice and fairness and equality and treating people with respect, and a shocking reminder about what that needs to look like, or when it isn't right, what that leads to. So I think it's been a very challenging summer for lots of reasons, very challenging year for lots of reasons. And ironically, I think COVID's more straightforward. I don't think the policing have excelled themselves, but I don't think it's been disastrous. But I think there's some sobering reminders about the need continuously to work with people, to act reasonably, to be fair, but not to, within that, to enforce those things that need to be enforced appropriately. And there's no easy answers. And we have some very young officers put under a lot of pressure. And you stick a camera in somebody's face, they don't always perform very well, as today will now demonstrate. So I think that's, those are my observations, Stuart.
No, that's very helpful. Yeah.
You didn't give Marlene this hard time. Can I just say that?
Oh, come on, we're lovely and cuddly. Tell us about your dog, then. Tell us about your dog.
Well, he's disappeared. We adopted a lurcher several years ago. Who's quite spirited. He's busy, normally languishing on the sofa, but I've come away to a quiet corner to talk to you. So unfortunately,
you should have bought him. Cromwell could have said.
Well, yeah, it's yeah, he's enjoying his evening quiet.
Do you need lots of long walks?
No, he's pretty good like that. Although we have done lots of walking in lockdown. The wet weather at the moment means it's a bit of an old drag, isn't it? All the places you want to go is completely waterlogged. So
Muddy, aren't they?
pretty bad.
Sorry for all these dogs. I feel sorry for all these dogs having to be walked because that's all their owners are allowed to do.
Yeah, we haven't. I can see how that happens. We haven't gone mad on ours. So I think I have to walk my teenager as much as my dog. So.
Yeah, well, I could take him out for a walk most days, whether I wanted or not. Yeah. Look, you mentioned the Black Lives Matter thing. That's obviously something. I mean, I work in sport, and so many of the our top athletes are black, and so many people that I know are passionate about it, and tell me things that horrify me about experiences they've had. I mean, do you have any sort of wisdom on this?
I don't have a lot of wisdom on most things, Stuart. I think it depends. I mean, I don't know if are you talking about UK citizens? I guess that's my first question, because policing across the world is done differently.
Well, I'm talking with things like a top British athlete that I know who tells me that she goes into an expensive shop, asked to try on a jacket, she'd like it to be told it's expensive and are you sure you can afford it, or the security guard will walk around after her.
Yeah, yeah.
And to me, it horrifies me that I have allowed our society to develop like that.
Yeah, I think there's that whole notion of how do we model black people? How they portrayed? What do we assume? And do people end up living out those stereotypes because they're angry and frustrated by how they're treated? So if you expect somebody to be angry and aggressive when you're dealing with them and are very reactive to that, not surprisingly they become aggressive and angry. So it's that very difficult way about treating people appropriately and not expecting them to be reasonable, but inviting and hoping that they will be by virtue of the fact that you're approaching it in a reasonable way. But the things you describe, it would seem very common. I'm not, obviously, my own experiences are different, but we do know that there are lots of ways to be overtly and inadvertently offensive to people, and clearly those things are, as you described, Stuart, just those subtle ways in which assumptions are made about how people are, who they appear to be. Unfortunately, there's a response following from that's not appropriate. And it's incumbent on us all to kind of just reflect on that, really, about what does that mean? What do we guess?
Cromwell's put his head up.
Yeah. Is it time for his question?
I think it may be.
It is hard as Stuart's question.
No, it's an easy question. And I think I know the answer. Cromwell wants to know dogs or cats.
Let me think about that for a moment. I think it might be dogs.
Yay! Cromwell, you're in.
Yeah, I couldn't say anything else.
In the interest of balance, I think we're going to need to have some more interviews with cat lovers, because we've been a bit.
There may be a church bias in the pet world, so you might have to think carefully to redress that.
Yeah, we may have to address this. Well, we did actually discover, but we can't tell the secret because this one hasn't aired yet. Our next guest is somebody who has a cat.
Yes.
Who likes certain members of the family more than others, we're told.
What the cat does, or the interviewee does?
The cat does.
Right, okay.
Yeah, watch this space.
Watch this space.
Well, yeah. I shall watch with interest.
Yeah, watch with interest. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time. That was really great, and thanks for what you brought to the church. And it's just a matter of me to say now that it's time for us to go. But we'll be back next week with a brand new show. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Adrian.
you.